Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fireside Chat number 59. I'm here with my very special guest, Aydin Paladin. Hello, Aydin. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, and I'm Aydin Paladin. I'll tell my faults.
Aydin, I only know you as a YouTuber, but are you also a alt-right neo-Nazi, fascist?
Yeah, absolutely. Sig Heil 1488.
Yeah. Gamergate president or something. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I'm a very extreme Heil Hitler, of course, as we all are, as everyone right of Marx is.
That's correct. That's correct. and while you're doing all of this secret patriarchal, capitalist, white supremacist undercover stuff, you have to have like a regular sort of front as a job, right? So what's your front job? Do you have like a front job?
I'm a professor.
Oh, really? And what?
Yeah, that's naughty. I'm not supposed to. It's the kind of thing where like there are actual reasons. Like I understand why some people are very nervous about doxing. I do have a reason for that. Do you understand that if people understood that I make YouTube videos of the caliber that I do, that they would, and then they've tried already to contact my university because luckily I go to a pretty based university and they don't give a shit. But if I went to a slightly more liberal one, I would be gone the next day.
If you're listening to this after the live show and you want to hear the full stream, go to www.honeybadgerradio.com for our unabridged podcasts, or look up to the right of this video. There's a link to go directly to the unabridged version on YouTube.
What made you want to make videos?
My dad suggested it. Actually, he got tired of me bitching at him over text. Because my dad is another libertarian conservative. As I always have been, and I would just be like, "Did you read this thing today?" And I would just text at him, and he would be like, "Why don't you get on YouTube and be?"
So basically, why don't you leave me alone and go yell at the
yell at the void?
Yell into the void. Throw your message in a bottle in an ocean full of messages in bottles.
Well, my dad's he's 60 something, so like he doesn't have a great YouTube acumen, I would say, but he knows Paul Joseph Watson, and he's like, you could be Paul Joseph Watson, or you could be and he's like, go be PJW, and I said, okay, I understand what you're saying is absurd, but sure, I'll go scream into the void like PJW, and Naked Ape and those guys that I really have looked up to from YouTube that I've watched.
Can you say, imagine my shock?
Imagine my shock.
But oh, that's great. You have so your father is in your life then, huh? That's good. That's something that I often ask myself, because we are a channel that has a focus on men's issues, and a lot of that is paternal. Yeah, a lot of that is fathers' involvement with their families, and I've noticed
father's involvement is extremely important. All the data show it, and from my personal experience, I can attest to that.
Yes, and I actually have wondered, the people who tend to have this like more sort of libertarian views, like definitely don't become sort of state-dependent folks, or people who think that they need something external, which is I think where a lot of this sort of feminism comes from, is this need to belong to something. There's some void in your life. I noticed that a lot of them have fathers. They have both of their parents, more specifically, but my
parents were divorced. My parents were divorced, but the difference is that my father was always involved, and I could tell this story. I think I may have told it on another stream, which is that my mom's a very hippie lady. Now, she also voted for Trump, but she was a hippie dippy kind of person, and I remember hearing these stories from when I was like 9 years old and walking up to people and being like, "You're a liberal, aren't you?" And because I could tell from your hippie fucking attitude. So that's my father's influence 100%. And I've heard some more, I wouldn't call them men's advocacy people, but a little bit more on the actual misogynists, because they do exist, being like, women can't have opinions unless they're influenced by a male figure. And, well, I don't think that's the case, but it is true that a positive, strong male figure in your life is going to influence a woman's opinions. And my father being a strong male figure in my life certainly did. That would be an undeniable fact. I would probably not be a libertarian were it not for my father to introduce me to those kinds of ideas, to introduce me to critical thinking. Now, I probably wouldn't be a scientist if it wasn't for my father introducing me to critical thinking.
So you did see the red pill, and you enjoyed it, but nothing. What you're saying is that you weren't really exposed to anything that you didn't already know.
No, but I mean, like, to me, again, this is if I had to say there was a focus to my channel, it's science and academia. The things that I focus on are I won't like. Okay. There are a lot of people on YouTube who will react to crazy feminists or who will react just to politics. I'm not going to react or make a video on anything unless I think I have something scientific that I can add to it that would be informative to people. If I can't give some little tiny, even if it's just a snippet of a social psychological lesson, I won't bother making a video. Right. Which is why it takes me forever to make stuff, because sometimes I have to analyze things a little bit more in depth. I think that's not a slap to anyone. That's
No, I hear what you're saying. It's just what you find that is going to like get your motor running is going to have this angle.
It has to have I have to be able to also explain something. It's like so I don't do reaction videos or stuff like that, but I did do one, and it was only because I could see someone using a social psychological tactic, a communication tactic, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that really grinds my gears. But yeah, the red pill, I thought it was a really, really enjoyable documentary, but for me, no. And the fact that the information that is presented in that documentary is so apparently anathema to the public that it has to be banned, and I'm like, this is common knowledge shit. My best friend, I would say at this point, my best friend in the universe, he is a lawyer. He just passed the bar in Chicago, and
oh, congratulations! And
to him, yeah.
He should look me up. I'll buy him a drink for passing the bar.
Oh, cool, yeah. But he just passed the bar, and he'll tell me straight up, the law is incredibly against men. And he's a liberal. He's a leftist person. Even he recognizes that because he had to study the law. That the law is precisely set up to be anti-male in terms of the civil courts.
Have you noticed that feminism has really ramped up its efforts to like block discussions like this and like reinforce their myths and all that? Or do you think this is about the same?
No, they're going to get, this is very typical social psychology though, is that as your group identity becomes more and more I wouldn't say infringed upon, but becomes more and more questioned, your psychological reactance is going to increase. So you're going to react more and more and more as you're being pushed back against. Your cognitive dissonance will ramp up. And the more cognitive dissonance you feel, the more anger you're going to feel as a result of that. This is basic social psychology of, it's no shit they're so terrified. It's no shit that they are fighting against it to such an extreme degree, because this is the psychology of their group narrative.
Yeah. And so I was, you know what, it's actually good that you point that out, that this is the reason, because I was just going to say, like, with the election, well, it's been building for a little while, so like, we can go back a little bit. So Brexit, right? People on the left, and when I say the left, I don't mean everyone. I'm talking about the crazy cultural Marxist freakouts. They lost their shit after Brexit happened. Actually leading all the way up to it, but once it did, and it completely, upset their expectations, they flipped shit, and then the election happened, and they went even crazier, and now we have Antifa, comes out of nowhere. I mean, I'm sure they've been around, but, them, and about that, was it BAM? That, like, extremely cultish, sort of organization that's run by that, I think she's a middle school or high school teacher that runs the thing?
Her name is Yvette Falakra. Yes. She is a middle school teacher in Berkeley, California. She actually, if you look at it, they took her to court to make it so she couldn't teach anymore, and she won. She brought in the little children, and they had to say, "Oh, Miss Falakra, she is such a good teacher. She protects us against assholes," or something. It was a repugnant display of indoctrination of children that made me sick.
Yes, exactly. So what is, I guess, from your perspective as a social psychologist, like a professor of sociology? Is that fair to say?
I'm actually a professor of communication studies, I am a media psychologist would be the correct term.
All right. Well, what's your take on like the you know, what that is about, like how that happened, where are these people coming from, like where are their heads at?
Oh, geez. They believe that they are morally infallible. They believe that you have to understand that the Antifa in particular, they believe without question that what they are doing is fighting the fascist Nazis and preventing them from taking over the world and committing another Holocaust. They believe that in their heads. Now, they're confused as fuck and they're wrong as fuck, but they truly believe it. They believe it because of indoctrination. They believe it because they have been through a Marxist indoctrinated education system. Yeah, there's and it's not surprising when you look at their belief system why they have those beliefs.
Yeah, so it's crazy, man. I mean, it's crazy to find someone who works in education that isn't like this kind of, you know, nut job. Do you seriously, maybe a different kind of nut job. I don't know you that well, but but like, you know, like, do you want to make this a career? Do you think that this is like, do you have to like keep, you know, your views secret, or do you want to be like Jordan Peterson and just put them out there?
Get me tenure, motherfucker, and we'll talk about making this public.
Yeah, right. That's
the thing
true.
is, no, it is a different thing. Like, even Dr. Peterson, in the position that he's in as a tenured professor, normally tenure means you can't fire me if I decide to like fucking just take off my pants and show my asshole in front of my class as a lecture. However, if I said it was postmodern art or something, right? However, to explicate conservative, I would say, ideas such as Dr. Peterson has, he can't do that. He is at actual jeopardy in Canada to lose his position. And as a PhD student, which I am, oh fuck, I can't say shit. Now, yeah, I am a professor in terms of I teach. Now, I'm allowed to say that I'm a professor because I teach. However, I'm still a PhD student. Until I get that PhD, then we have to talk about 5 to 10 years of working in academia in order to achieve the tenure track, at which point then I could say whatever the fuck I want. I can't say that shit right now. And actually, I worry all the time. I'm like, someone's going to figure out what my voice sounds like, and they're going to, because I've done public speeches and stuff as an academic, and like my real life personality, someone's going to connect it, and it will become obvious, I think, over time, because my research is very, very specialized. People will figure it out, and we'll deal with that as it comes.
Someone also, I guess, made a request that you had another sort of more scientific angle on this. Actually, shit, sorry about that. That you had a more scientific angle on this whole deal. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
A scientific angle on Marvel, beyond just knowing what they're going to do, is, and we discussed this a little bit, but like the idea is that I don't know what part Disney is playing in this. In terms of the psychology or the social science angle of what Marvel is doing, it doesn't actually make any sense, because they're not pandering to an audience that buys their books. The thing is, they think that they can pander to an audience that exists, and it's true, the social justice audience certainly exists. The problem is that they don't buy comics. Now, I would use some anecdotal evidence. I remember it's 2008, let's say. No, not that long ago. 2010. I'm going to my local comic shop, and I remember asking the owner of the shop, because we were friends, and I said, how much of an uptick in sales do you get after a Marvel movie comes out? So this is like shortly after Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie was a thing, and it was like Marvel was really taking off.
Yeah.
And he said, maybe like half a week, I see a little bit of an uptick, and then it goes away. It'll be like a couple people who've never been here before will come in and buy a comic. That's the fact, is that these Marvel movies, this pandering shit, it appeals to people who do not buy comic books. The people who buy comic books on a week-to-week basis, who have pull lists, they're not influenced by this. They have no influence on it. And in fact, it's an insult to them. Now, there are some people who are such diehard comic fans, they'll continue to read, they'll continue to buy. The problem is that the people like me who are more like, I buy based on quality, we're not going to keep buying it. It's a miscalculation in the marketing.
Yeah, it's weird that you would say that, because like you would think that the thing is, the content in the books that they're making where they have, ask me about my feminist agenda, is it Mockingbird? Yeah. And they have
it's such an insult to me because she's one of my favorite Marvel characters.
I used to, so I'm an older guy, and I used to read the West Coast Avengers when it was a thing in the 90s, and she was part of that team, and I dug her. I liked her and Hawkeye, and that whole team was cool to me. So yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, and I found it weird that I even have to where we're having this discussion about diversity in comics because I've been reading them since the 1970s, and I would get a lot of older books too from before that, and I never saw a problem with that, but this is obviously because the people who are making these complaints are people who don't really consume the product. They just criticize the product. So,
but it's the exact same thing as Gamergate.
Mm-hmm.
And Anita Sarkeesian didn't fucking play video games. She admitted it. She admitted she didn't play. I mean, no. She retroactively said, "Oh no, of course I love video games." But whatever. These are people who are not your target market. And as a marketer, as someone who's worked in marketing, as someone who's worked pretty good a lot in marketing, it's stupid. This is very ignorant market research. If you're going to say what they see is that there's the term is that the smallest group sort of shouts the loudest. It's this extreme minority that is screeching at the top of their lungs to say we want this and we want that. The problem is they don't purchase it, and even if they did, they are still the smallest minority. It's pointless to pander to them. Yeah. Who buys comics? People like me, people who just want to read a good comic book. I would love to have a Mockingbird series where I wasn't upset that Mockingbird had the stupid feminist agenda.
What were your thoughts on science fetishization?
It concerns me because, here's the thing. I want as many people as possible to be interested in science, particularly people to be interested in social science, legitimate social science, what I do, which is the quantitative empiricism. I want people to be interested in it. My life goal, if I had one life goal, and I do, and it's this, I want to inspire one student to love my field of media psychology. That would be like I could die happy knowing if that happened. And so I dislike the science fetishization. I like the idea that people are interested in science, but I want it to be legitimate. You can't just say, "Oh, I love this picture of a water bear" or whatever. That's not. It's not loving science. Loving science is being a nerd. Being a legitimate nerd, not being a Big Bang Theory. I'm fucking what's his name? Sheldon or something.
Oh,
no, this is not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting to me, actually, because I really hate that. Really hate that. I want to actually inspire someone to come in. Like I said, when I first read that Proteus theory study, it blew my fucking mind. Because I was like, oh my god. And I want my... Actually, I think that when my dissertation finally gets... the research that's based on my dissertation, the dissertation itself will probably be a book, but the research that... There's going to be about 6 studies that are going to go into the dis, and all those studies will be published independently. Those studies should... My current research is essentially a fuck you to Anita Sarkeesian. It is a giant fuck you. There's that the idea of the sexy video game character making women not want to play games is an absurdity and actually completely incorrect. If not only incorrect, but it's the exact opposite. That a sexy body in a video game actually makes women maybe want to play that game more.
Yeah.
That's what my initial data are indicating.
I mean, Lara Croft is pretty popular with girl gamers.
Okay, hang on. I'll have to find the actual data because I don't have the citation off the top of my head, but the initial data are indicating that what was her diss? There was a dissertation that I am... Is this it? Avatar social identity theory. I might have the citation right here. Ooh, there was research though that indicated it was someone else's dissertation. It wasn't mine, obviously. That essentially said that women who played this game, who played Tomb Raider, it made them feel a little bit less. It's called self-efficacy. But the problem is that the way that she analyzed self-efficacy was using a generalized self-efficacy scale, instead of a game-related self-efficacy scale, which there are some German scientists who have created a game-related self-efficacy scale. and that was not the utilized instrument. And additionally, the way that that research was conducted was very poor. It was, in my opinion, to an almost criminal degree, poor research conduction. My research is changing the way that that is examined, to examine game-related self-efficacy and the appropriateness of attire in the game. So meaning, like, if you're conducting a social task, like asking people to agree with you, like in an RPG, as you might. So like getting NPC characters to agree with your character to go along with what they want to do, it actually, women will feel higher game-related self-efficacy if they are in a sexualized costume. Actually, higher self-efficacy.
How do you have a protagonist in a film that's going to have some tension or some danger in it, like if it's not like a drama or something,
right?
And not have them try to perform some feats that would appear masculine, like what, like, you know, it's almost like saying, well, are physical feats masculine traits or not?
Yeah.
But then, so I was thinking about that. I'm like, been thinking about this for a long time, because actually I'm starting a comic about a female hero, and I've been like thinking, like, I want to do this in a different way. I don't want to make it political. I don't want to do girl power shit, but I do want to do a female character because I had this concept in mind. That's why, not because it's a woman, but because I had this specific idea. And then something really interesting happened. I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast with Jordan Peterson.
Oh, and yeah, that was great.
Yes, it was really great. But the thing that really stood out for me was Jordan Peterson was explaining where heroes come from, and it has and how it relates to sexual selection. And what he said is that the reason why we have an archetype for what a hero is because we look at the men who have been, like, throughout time, he's going back, way back, you know, we look at the men who have been sexually successful and the kind of feats that they performed. We told stories about those men. And then over time, we start telling more stories about more men because those original stories inspired other men to try to perform at that level because they want to be sexually successful, right? And so you have a series of this sort of repeating, and then they ask, well, what's the ultimate man like? What's the perfect man? Well, you know, is that like a god or someone related to one? Like, is that a Hercules figure, or is that a Horus or Jesus or whatever it is? But there is essentially you have this archetype of what a hero is, and it relates to the kind of services that men are that are expected of men in order for them to be sexually successful with essentially what is considered a very sort of like high status woman, which is why they usually call it the virgin, right? And
yes.
So I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, so I understand where this comes from. This is why you have Beowulf and all these like old characters of legend, which superheroes and you know characters in narratives today are often based on in some capacity. They come from that, which has come from stories that go way, way back. So then I thought, well, if a male hero is based on his performance as a man according to essentially what women look for in sexual selection, then what does a female hero do? Like, because men don't select women for those reasons.
Right.
So that for me, that brings about a bit of a I find that to be an interesting question to think about, because I want to do that. And I'm thinking, well, if what Mr. Peterson says has any, has legs on it, which I think it does, then there's got to be something on the female side that could be just as interesting to explore. Jordan Peterson, he figured out the female myth recently. It's Beauty and the Beast, taming the wild male, or taming the man.
Absolutely, right? No, that is absolutely that is the female sexual desire.
Yes, and the thing is, it manifests not only in Beauty and the Beast and stuff like that, but if you pick up any romance novel or 50 Shades of Grey or
Twilight, all of this is taming the man. Yeah,
exactly. It's basically go ahead.
We desire that on some psychological level. We desire the virility of the wild male in order to like rein him in. That's a part of female sexuality.
Yeah, it's like the broken baby bird.
I've got that real bad. I've got the broken baby bird thing. That's my shit. I go for that so fucking hard.
Yeah, because it's basically a project. Like women like a man that's a project, right? It gives them something to work on. And I know that I'm making generalizations. This is us talking generalizations. But you're not incorrect.
But women make generalizations about men all the time.
Sure.
That's fine in our society. You should be allowed to do the opposite. And you're correct. You're not incorrect. Or I should say you're not incorrect. That very much describes many women, myself included.
Mm-hmm. And that's the ironic thing about that is even though that is the archetype, and even though it's very popular with women who read books, because when you read any romance novel, it's always this savage guy from another tribe or another sort of another world, a different culture.
Sort of arcade selection theory, a little bit.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And he's like he's really alpha, but he's like a wild person, or unpredictable, maybe violent or whatever, and she's going to sort of civilize him. And that's really popular with women. The interesting thing about that is if you made a movie out of that, or you try to tell a story like that, feminists would cry sexism so hard. There's no way you could do that. You made a video called Amy Schumer, Comedy and Memeology. Why the right is funny. So I want to know, as a person who voted Democrat until this last election, one of the things that I had noticed is in the past, when I was younger, the sort of the right wing came across as unhumorous and stuffy and controlling, and it was often presented like through media and stuff that they were this way. But you also saw examples, like it wasn't just like out of nowhere. You would see examples of this.
Absolutely.
And now it seems like things have flipped. And I noticed that the not just conservatives, but anybody who's not sort of a far left nut job, the people who are on the left but reasonable classical liberals, moderates, independents, conservatives, and libertarians, they tend to be a lot funnier these days. And I noticed that there's a flip. So what I want to ask you is, what have you observed about this whole thing?
So the basic issue is the idea of political correctness, because if you're politically correct, for example, you cannot break the mold of certain ideas. You're beholden to certain stringencies, right? Of like, these are the things that you can talk about, and these are certain things that you can be honest about. Now, honest is in quotations, because you can't be honest about shit if you're on the left at this point. The left has become... The left and the right have flipped, and you're correct, they have flipped in many ways. It used to be that the religious right couldn't take a fucking joke. Now, under like political correctness, the left can't take a fucking joke. They absolutely cannot take a joke. You cannot joke about anything. You literally, if you joke about something, even something that's benign and that is safe, you're gonna, quote, trigger someone. Someone will get triggered on the left, and they'll cry, and then that has to be a whole new article because, oh no, it upset this person because they identify as an Apache attack helicopter, and oh no, oh, I'm so sorry. That is the whole problem, is that the left has become so sensitive, they cannot joke about anything. And I remember, let's say 15 years ago, when you would see the blue collar comedy tour, for example. So like Ron White, Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, the Larry the Cable Guy. Yeah, Larry the Cable Guy. He was not funny, but the other guys actually were entertaining. I still listen to old Ron White humor comedy pretty much every day. I listen to it sometimes when I go for walks on Pandora, and that shit was actually funny because it was willing to break some molds. But the fact of the matter is, the left cannot make jokes when you have engaged in such stringent and extreme social justice advocacy, because it means you can't make fun of anything because you will offend somebody. Humor is reliant on the very basic principle of expectation violation theory, which is Judy Burgoon. Look at Judy Burgoon's research on expectation violation theory. That's the basic citations. And Burgoon's research indicates that, like, yes, you require something to upset your expectation in order to find it funny. And it's not just her, it's also Melanie Booth Butterfield. Melanie Booth Butterfield's research also, and her husband, both the Booth Butterfields' research on humor theory indicate that yes, it has to be right in this sort of sweet spot of being offensive and being relevant.
Right.
If it's too offensive, it's not funny. If it's like too soon, it's not funny. If it's too far away from the event or too far away from the subject that it's old news, it's not funny. You need to find the sweet spot in between of just being pretty much offensive. That makes something amusing. That is supported by hard scientific data. It was an extreme honor actually to be on here. Yes, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And maybe would you like to come back sometime?
Invite me anytime.
Anytime. All right, Aydin, I might hold you to that. Well, guys, you should definitely go to Aydin Paladin's channel. It is good shit. There's lots of videos. She hasn't been around for that long.
Only since January.
Only
Yes.
since January, but she's got like 20 some odd videos, and they're good. So go check them out. Aydin, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it was a really good time. Thank you guys for watching. And if you have any thoughts about anything that we talked about, please leave in the comments. And remember, when this show goes off air, it's also going to go unlisted. So you're going to have the link. And that's just so that we can... We're basically trying to protect ourselves from the crazy YouTube algorithm bullshit. So until further notice, we're unlisting our videos after they go up. But an abridged version will be going up tomorrow. If you have access to the original link, just go back and watch it. And leave some comments. I like to read them. And what's up? YourMovieSucks2.org? See, he's in the chat. So
Your movie sucks. Adam
Yeah.
is in the chat.
Yeah.
Adam, I love you. Holy shit.
all right, Adam, thanks for coming on. No, but seriously. Aydin, thanks for joining us on the Fireside Chat.